Hello Golden State Warriors fans. We are here once again to bring you the latest news related to our team, and I would like to emphasize how committed we are to improving our performance to achieve great results. Before we dive into this intriguing news, I kindly request you to show your support by clicking the like button, and if you are not yet subscribed to our channel, I invite you all to join us on an exciting journey. Remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss anything.
Kyrie Irving believes LeBron James was taking a subtle shot at Stephen Curry during his latest interview, and he didn't hesitate to make that clear. Irving shared a social media post hinting that LeBron's recent praise of Curry might have carried a hidden message. The relationship between LeBron James and Kyrie Irving has always fascinated NBA fans. From the moment they became teammates, there was an undeniable tension between them, even during their most dominant years together. By 2017, things had boiled over. Irving left LeBron and the Cavaliers after their partnership became strained and ultimately unsustainable. For a while, it seemed like the past had been buried. LeBron publicly wished Kyrie nothing but the best, and many believed the two had finally moved on. But have things really changed? Kyrie Irving has now reposted a fan's claim that LeBron disrespected Stephen Curry. A fan on X interpreted a post from LeBron and JJ Redick's Mind the Game podcast, which called Stephen Curry the greatest shooter of all time, as a disguised jab. For the untrained eye, that caption looks like a compliment, the fan wrote. Surprisingly, Kyrie reposted the comment, signaling he agreed with the idea that LeBron's message wasn't as innocent as it appeared. This feels like the latest flare-up in a long and complicated history between LeBron and Kyrie, a relationship filled with sharp comments and subtle digs. What began years ago, when Irving rejected LeBron's attempt to mentor him, has only snowballed into more tension and passive-aggressive back-and-forths. It's easy to forget, given their rocky dynamic, just how well LeBron James and Kyrie Irving played together. Despite Irving's insistence that he didn't leave Cleveland because of LeBron, their years of indirect shade tell a different story. And with where both stars are in their careers, combined with how strained things seem behind the scenes, one thing feels certain: LeBron James and Kyrie Irving will never be teammates again. In the hours that followed Kyrie's repost, the NBA community reacted quickly. Some fans saw it as Kyrie simply defending Stephen Curry, a player he has openly praised in the past. Others viewed it as yet another chapter in the long unresolved tension between Kyrie and LeBron, a tension that seems to resurface whenever either of them makes the slightest remark that can be interpreted as shade. Analysts also weighed in, noting that LeBron has a habit of delivering compliments that can be read in multiple ways. While calling Curry the greatest shooter ever is hardly controversial, the timing and framing of the post raised eyebrows. The fact that Kyrie chose to amplify a fan interpretation, rather than clarify or dismiss it, only fueled speculation that the relationship between the two stars may be more strained than fans believed. Some close to the league have pointed out that LeBron's history of competitive politicking has often put him at odds with former teammates. From Kevin Love to Kyrie and even younger players who have entered his orbit, LeBron's leadership style has long been dissected. Kyrie's sensitivity to those dynamics is well documented, making his reaction to the podcast post feel less like a surprise and more like a pattern repeating itself. Meanwhile, the exchange has sparked wider conversations about the evolving hierarchy of NBA superstars. The ongoing Curry-LeBron dynamic, a rivalry defined by finals matchups and contrasting philosophies, continues to shape how their comments are interpreted. Some fans argued that Kyrie might be projecting past frustrations, while others insisted that he recognized something in LeBron's phrasing that casual viewers overlooked. As for Stephen Curry, he has stayed silent, consistent with his usual approach to off-court drama. People close to him reportedly believe he is unfazed by the online debate, focusing instead on his team's performance. Still, the discourse around his name has once again turned into a proxy battle between two former teammates whose shared history refuses to fade. The ripple effects of this moment stretch beyond social media. League insiders noted that the episode underscores why any reunion between LeBron and Kyrie, a topic that resurfaces every off-season, remains unrealistic. Their personalities, priorities, and interpretations of respect within the sport appear too far apart to reconcile. If anything, the latest exchange reminds fans of the complexity of superstar relationships in the modern NBA. Public comments are rarely just comments, and gestures that seem supportive can carry undertones shaped by years of competition, pride, and unresolved tension. Whether this moment becomes just another footnote or sparks a new wave of indirect exchanges remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: the storyline between LeBron James and Kyrie Irving continues to evolve, long after their on-court partnership ended. Stephen Curry may need to borrow a page from his former teammate LeBron James if he wants to extend his career, according to a former NBA star. Even as he approaches age 38, Curry remains the undisputed best player on the Golden State Warriors. The era when NBA icons retired at 35 is long gone. Today, more and more players are stretching their careers well into their late 30s, and sometimes beyond. Whether it's LeBron James or Stephen Curry, the league's greatest superstars refuse to say goodbye to the game. But playing deep into one's late career comes with its own set of challenges. In Curry's case, the Warriors' heavy dependence on him has pushed the four-time champion into an exhausting role as the team's primary scoring engine. And former NBA standout Lou Williams believes that if Curry wants to avoid breaking down, he may need to adjust his game. Lou Williams says Stephen Curry should take a Ray Allen approach to extend his longevity. Right now, the season is still young, and Curry is carrying the Warriors as he always has. But fans watched his body show signs of wear during last year's playoffs. To prevent that from happening again, Williams has a proposal. Curry should eventually transition into a secondary scoring role, similar to the one Ray Allen embraced late in his career. He can be Ray Allen, Williams said on Run It Back. He could become a third or fourth option and just be a three-point shooter, whether it's spot-ups or corner threes. He could space the floor and still give a team elite shooting. Williams added, "I don't know if he'd be able to defend at a high level as he gets older, so maybe he gives up a couple of twos for threes. But if you look at his career and the way he shoots the ball, if Steph stays healthy, he could play for a long, long time." Ray Allen's career offers a strong blueprint. After leaving the Boston Celtics, Allen took on a reduced role with the Miami Heat, and still won another championship. He wasn't the star anymore, yet he became a legend again in the 2013 finals with his iconic Game 6 three-pointer against the San Antonio Spurs. Chandler Parsons believes Stephen Curry could play until he's 45. Williams' co-host, former NBA forward Chandler Parsons, took the idea even further, suggesting that Curry's style of play could allow him to stay active in the league far longer than anyone expects. "His game is going to age incredibly well," Parsons explained. "A lot of guys rely on athleticism, and once that slips, their production drops. But with the way Steph shoots the ball, it's not crazy to think he could play until he's 45. For now, that's a discussion for the distant future." Curry's immediate focus remains on lifting the Warriors, who sit at 10-9 in the regular season, back into true contention. The conversation around Curry's longevity has sparked a wider debate across the league. As teams increasingly prioritize player preservation, analysts believe the Warriors may eventually need to rethink how they rely on their franchise cornerstone. For years, Golden State's offense has revolved around Curry's movement, gravity, and off-ball activity, a system that demands exceptional conditioning and relentless energy. While it has produced championships, it has also placed enormous physical strain on a player now nearing his fourth decade. Some observers argue that the organization must step in before Curry is forced to adjust on his own. The Warriors' last two seasons have highlighted how difficult it is to keep pace with younger teams when the roster leans heavily on a veteran star. Several insiders have suggested that Golden State may need to transition toward a system that allows Curry to conserve energy, particularly during the regular season. That could mean adding more playmaking support, diversifying the offensive options, or limiting the minutes in which Curry is required to be the sole engine of the attack. Meanwhile, former players and coaches have weighed in on whether Curry could realistically adopt a specialized late-career role. Some believe his conditioning, discipline, and shooting mechanics give him a unique advantage. Unlike players who rely on athleticism or physical dominance, Curry's skill set is built to age well, provided he avoids the injuries that often accompany high-usage roles. Others, however, caution that transitioning from superstar to role player is easier said than done. Doing so requires not only physical adjustment but also a shift in mentality, something few former MVPs have been willing or able to embrace. The comparison to Ray Allen continues to generate discussion. Allen's willingness to adapt his game extended his career and secured one of the defining moments in NBA Finals history. Yet the situations differ. Curry is the face of a franchise, the foundation of a dynasty, and the primary reason the Warriors remain competitive. Moving him into a supporting role would not simply require personal acceptance. It would require a complete philosophical shift within the organization. The debate has also reignited speculation about how much longer Curry intends to play. While he hasn't publicly outlined a timeline, Those close to him describe a player deeply committed to preparation and fascinated by the longevity of athletes like Tom Brady and LeBron James. With modern sports science and Curry's meticulous approach to training, it's possible his career could extend well beyond league norms. But the key variable remains workload, and whether Golden State can build a roster capable of sharing the burden. Even within the Warriors' locker room, there is growing recognition of how critical it is to preserve Curry for the years ahead. Younger players have publicly acknowledged the need to step up, while coaches have hinted at potential adjustments to maintain his efficiency throughout the season. The front office faces similar pressure. Decisions made over the next year may determine whether Curry enjoys a sustainable second phase of his career or continues to be pushed to the brink. For now, the conversation is mostly theoretical. Curry continues to compete at an elite level, delivering performances that defy age and expectation. But the noise surrounding his future reflects a larger truth. The league is evolving, its stars are aging differently, and the blueprint for career longevity is no longer linear. Whether Curry chooses to reinvent himself like Ray Allen, maintain LeBron-level durability, or forge his own path, the coming years will reshape not only his legacy but the direction of the Warriors as a whole. Steve Kerr didn't hide his frustration after watching his team completely abandon the game plan in the opening minutes against the Utah Jazz. Yes, the Golden State Warriors finally snapped their three-game losing streak with a 134-117 win on Monday night, but the first quarter left Kerr visibly irritated. Golden State entered the season looking sharp, but a rocky stretch pushed them down to 8th place in the Western Conference. The win over Utah was a much-needed boost, yet the opening period revealed some of the same defensive cracks that have haunted them all month. Kerr, Warriors lost focus despite pre-game warnings. The Warriors gave up 35 points in the first quarter, ignoring the exact defensive priorities Kerr had emphasized just hours earlier. After the game, a reporter asked him directly about the heated message he delivered to the team between quarters. "You really lit into them at the end of the first and early in the second," the reporter noted. Obviously, there were defensive breakdowns. What frustrated you the most about how you played on that end, and what changed in the final 3 quarters? Kerr didn't hold back. He explained that the team's approach to Keyonte George, whom he had specifically identified as a major threat, was careless and unfocused. "It was really just the start," Kerr said via NBC Sports. "I thought our defense was excellent after that. Keyonte George and Lauri Markkanen were the two guys we wanted to keep under control and pay special attention to." But 10 minutes into the game, George was 4 for 4 from 3 wide-open looks. "We just lost concentration, and I needed to remind them, as gently as possible, that we had to lock in." George exploded for 15 points in the first quarter alone and looked ready to take over the game. But after Kerr's early intervention, the Warriors held him to just 13 points total over the final 3 quarters. The turning point, Golden State's second unit flips the game. Kerr credited the second unit group for completely shifting the momentum at the start of the second quarter. After trailing 35-26 early, the Warriors roared back with a dominant 41-22 period, arguably their best stretch of the night. "Given how we started, missing our first 5 or 6 shots, it didn't surprise me," Kerr admitted. "When things aren't going your way early, shots tend not to fall. So you have to fight, compete, and earn the right to make shots. That's the only way you create the kind of game we eventually had. But it starts with spirit, energy, and focus." Kerr then singled out the players who sparked the turnaround. "I thought our second group really set the tone. Pat Spencer, Will Richard, Quinton Post, and that unit with Jimmy at the start of the second quarter. They changed the game, no question. Their approach, the way they energized the arena, the way the ball moved, it was just great basketball to watch." As the game settled, the Warriors began leaning heavily on the renewed defensive commitment Kerr demanded. The coaching staff had emphasized all week that their issues had nothing to do with talent or offensive structure. It was about discipline, rotations, and accountability. Monday's turnaround became the first real example of what this roster can look like when it locks into a unified defensive purpose. Veterans and newcomers react to Kerr's message. Inside the locker room, several players acknowledged that Kerr's criticisms were justified. One veteran player, speaking off camera, admitted that the team had gotten too casual in recent losses and needed a jolt to wake them up. Monday provided that spark. Moses Moody later explained that the second unit's ability to restore order was a direct response to Kerr's earlier outburst. "Coach told us exactly what we weren't doing," Moody said. "We needed to tighten up, especially with our closeouts. Once we did that, everything else, ball movement, pace, confidence, came naturally. It's a familiar blueprint for Golden State. Their offense thrives only when their defense creates flow. When they force stops, the ball moves freely, Curry finds early offense, and the role players settle into rhythm. The Jazz game served as a reminder that this identity still exists, even with injuries and rotation instability. Why this defensive wake-up matters for the Warriors season. The implications stretch well beyond one regular season win. The Warriors have struggled with lapses in focus all year, especially against young, fast teams like Utah. Allowing opponents to dictate tempo had become a worrying trend, and Kerr has voiced concerns about the team's habit of playing the score instead of the game. Monday's response, particularly the 41-22 quarter, suggests that the Warriors can still flip a game with disciplined execution rather than simply relying on shot-making. Golden State's coaching staff has also emphasized the importance of avoiding slow starts, something that has plagued the team since the opening weeks of the season. Against Utah, the Warriors once again fell behind early, but for the first time in several games, they corrected course quickly rather than letting the deficit snowball. "We can't rely on heroic comebacks every night," Kerr said after reviewing the film. "If we're serious about where we want to go, we have to start games with the same urgency we show later." Rising pressure on the rotation. Kerr's public frustration also adds tension to the ongoing battle for minutes among Golden State's role players. Several members of the coaching staff have noted privately that the margin between playing and sitting is shrinking as the season progresses. Monday's game highlighted that players who bring immediate defensive energy, like Pat Spencer, Will Richard and Quinton Post, may see their roles expand. Their performance created an unexpected storyline. The veterans in the rotation may soon face real competition from younger and less established players who demonstrated they can execute the game plan without hesitation. What comes next for Golden State? The Warriors will face a much tougher opponent in their next matchup, and Kerr made it clear that Monday's improvements must carry over, not fade after a single win. "We did a lot of things right after that first quarter," Kerr said. "But consistency is everything. One good stretch doesn't solve our problems. We have to build on this." If Golden State can bottle the defensive focus they showed in the final three quarters, combined with the offensive momentum from Curry, Butler, Hield and Moody, they may be able to reclaim the early season form that briefly put them near the top of the Western Conference standings. The win over Utah wasn't perfect, but it was instructive. And for a team fighting to regain its identity, that may be even more valuable than the victory itself. Richard Jefferson believes the Oklahoma City Thunder may have to make a difficult choice this season: chase history, or chase another championship. The Thunder have exploded out of the gate, opening the year with a remarkable 17-1 record, the best in the NBA. It's a dramatic transformation for a franchise that endured the worst loss in league history just 3 years ago. Today, OKC looks nothing like that team. They're disciplined, explosive, and statistically the best defensive unit in the NBA, outpacing the rest of the league by a significant margin. Their dominant start has sparked a new conversation among fans. Can the Thunder surpass last season's 68-14 record and even challenge the legendary 70-win mark? Richard Jefferson warns OKC, chasing 70 wins could cost them the title. On the Road Trippin' podcast, Richard Jefferson addressed the Thunder's historic pace and offered a strong warning. While he believes OKC certainly can reach 70 wins, he argues they absolutely shouldn't make it a priority. To Jefferson, the math is simple. Chasing such a milestone demands extra effort, extra risk, and often unnecessary minutes that can hurt a team when it matters most, in May and June. If they want to win another title, they can't chase 70 wins, Jefferson said. No team is naturally good enough to hit that number without pushing themselves harder than usual. That extra effort adds up. He then pointed to NBA history. There's a reason only 2 teams have ever hit 70. And only one of them actually won the championship. If you're trying to get to 70, that means in those last couple games, you're not resting people. Guys push through bumps and bruises, they come back earlier than they should. And then what happens if you hit Houston, the Lakers, Denver in the playoffs? Jefferson's advice to OKC is blunt. Forget the 70 wins. Lock up the 1 seed, take your foot off the gas, and come back refreshed. 70 wins is cool, but it's not a trophy. Even without 70 wins, OKC is on track for a historic season. Whether they chase the milestone or not, the Thunder are already playing at a level that few teams in NBA history have reached. They're blowing opponents out, dictating tempo, and putting games away so early that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and other stars often sit long before the fourth quarter. The team's depth has become a defining weapon, multiple players contribute nightly, and their defensive intensity rarely dips. OKC consistently builds large leads in the first three quarters, giving them the luxury of keeping their stars fresh. And that's why many around the league believe the Thunder may repeat as champions, regardless of whether they finish with 68 wins, 70 wins, or something in between. At their current pace, history is within reach either way, but Jefferson's message is clear. The only history that truly matters is the one made in June. Still, as Jefferson's comments began circulating, they sparked a lively debate across NBA circles. Analysts, former players, and even some current stars weighed in on whether OKC should chase a once-in-a-generation record or stay laser-focused on postseason durability. League analysts echo Jefferson's caution. Several insiders agreed that Oklahoma City is entering dangerous territory if they treat the 70-win chase as anything more than a byproduct of playing well. With a core built around young stars, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren, some analysts warned that adding unnecessary work could undermine the very foundation the Thunder rely on: youth, energy, and relentless pace. Privately, a few scouts have also noted that the Thunder system demands high physical effort on both ends of the floor. Their aggressive switching, constant rim pressure, and transition-heavy style are all taxing. Stretch those demands too thin over an 82-game marathon, and vulnerabilities begin to surface, particularly for a team still growing into its championship identity. Inside OKC's locker room, confidence without complacency. Despite the outside noise, players inside the Thunder locker room are trying to keep things simple. The message coming out of post-game interviews has been remarkably consistent. They're not chasing a number, they're chasing habits. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander brushed off questions about the 70-win talk, insisting the team's focus hasn't shifted. "We're not thinking about records," he said. "We're thinking about playing the right way every night. Whatever comes from that, comes from that." Chet Holmgren echoed the sentiment, emphasizing growth over glory. "We want to compete, we want to win, but we also want to peak at the right time. That's the goal." Still privately, team insiders admit that beating last year's 68-win season is a point of pride. The players know what they're capable of, and they understand how dominant they've looked through the first quarter of the season. But there's also an awareness that the rest of the league is watching them closely, and preparing for them accordingly. Opposing teams prepare differently for OKC. Coaches across the NBA have begun adjusting their scouting approaches, treating Thunder matchups with a level of intensity usually reserved for playoff games. Several opposing assistants have mentioned that OKC's depth makes them particularly challenging to game plan for. Against most contenders, teams focus on containing one or two primary stars. Against the Thunder, the threat comes from everywhere. SGA's pacing control, Jalen Williams' versatility, Holmgren's two-way presence, the bench's relentless pace, and Mark Daigneault's unpredictable rotations. This has led to longer film sessions, more meticulous scouting reports, and increasingly targeted defensive schemes designed to slow OKC down long before the playoffs arrive. The broader repercussion, expectations keep rising. And this may be the biggest impact of OKC's historic start. With every win, every blowout, every dominant defensive performance, the expectations around the league continue to shift. What was once a promising young team is now being treated as the new standard, a franchise expected not just to contend, but to control the league for years. That rising pressure is precisely why Jefferson's warning resonates. A record like 70 wins may be unforgettable, but a championship cements a legacy. If the Thunder want both, they'll need to balance ambition with patience, confidence with discipline, and history with the long game. Because as dominant as they look now, the true test of greatness still waits in the postseason. Steve Kerr has identified two surprising Warriors players as key contributors in one of the team's most important battles, the turnover game. And according to the head coach, their impact is directly tied to Golden State's ability to win. The Golden State Warriors seem to have rediscovered their footing, snapping a 3-game losing streak with a commanding 134-117 victory over the Utah Jazz. The win was especially impressive considering the Warriors were without Draymond Green, Al Horford, and Jonathan Kuminga. Gary Payton II helped steady the rotation, while Stephen Curry delivered a vintage performance with 31 points and 6 three-pointers. Jimmy Butler added 18 points to help seal the night. But despite the scoring headlines, Kerr focused on something else entirely: ball security. And in that area, two role players stood out above all: Will Richard and Pat Spencer. "We took care of the ball, and that is our number one priority," Kerr said after the win. "When we hold on to the ball, we usually win. I think we're 9-1 when we win the turnover battle, and 1-8 when we don't." His point was unmistakable: the Warriors' path to success begins with limiting mistakes. Kerr went on to highlight how Richard and Spencer changed the game's tempo the moment they stepped onto the court. "I loved the way the ball moved. When Pat and Will came in, the ball flow, the energy, the rhythm, it just felt right." Against Utah, Spencer committed just one turnover in 14 minutes, while Richard produced a clean 22-minute stretch without a single mistake. Golden State finished with 14 turnovers overall. Curry accounted for 3, while forcing the Jazz into the same number. For Kerr, this wasn't a coincidence. It was validation. He has repeatedly stressed that ball security is the Warriors' lifeline. The stats back him up. Golden State is 9-1 when winning the turnover battle and just 1-8 when they lose it. Richard and Spencer typically don't log heavy minutes. Both usually hover below the 20-minute mark, but they excel in the one area Kerr values most. The two guards average a combined 0.7 turnovers per game, one of the lowest rates on the roster. Even when their stats are stretched to a per 36-minute projection, neither surpasses 2.5 turnovers. By comparison, regular rotation players such as Buddy Hield and Gue Santos average well above 3 per game. In a season where consistency and composure have been constant challenges, Richard and Spencer's discipline has become increasingly valuable. Their ability to protect the ball isn't just stabilizing the second unit, it may be earning them a more prominent role moving forward. For a Warriors team still searching for identity and rhythm, Kerr's message is clear: protect the ball, and the wins will follow. And if Richard and Spencer continue performing with this level of poise, their emergence might become one of the most unexpected and important storylines of Golden State's season. The conversation surrounding Will Richard and Pat Spencer is growing louder within the Warriors organization. What began as a pair of steady low-turnover performances has quickly evolved into a legitimate argument for expanded roles, especially at a time when Golden State is grappling with inconsistency and trying to steady a turbulent season. Coaches and staff members have quietly noted that the Warriors' offensive structure looks noticeably cleaner when either Richard or Spencer is on the floor. Their willingness to make the simple play, avoid forcing passes, and keep the pace controlled has helped stabilize second-unit lineups that often struggle with decision-making. In a team built around ball movement and precision, their fundamentally sound approach fits perfectly with Steve Kerr's system. Analysts around the league are beginning to take notice as well. Opposing scouts have pointed out that the Warriors' offense tends to stagnate when turnovers spike, especially without Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga to anchor key actions. With both players sidelined, the emergence of Richard and Spencer has offered Kerr a reliable safety valve. Their composure has allowed Golden State to maintain its offensive identity rather than abandoning structure in favor of isolation-heavy possessions. There is also a long-term layer to this story. The Warriors' front office has been exploring ways to retool the roster without sacrificing their core principles. Richard and Spencer were originally seen as developmental prospects, players who could fill rotation gaps if needed, but not necessarily ones whose presence would influence team-wide decision-making. That perception is shifting. Their efficiency is forcing legitimate conversations about rotation adjustments once the roster is fully healthy. Internally, some players have hinted that their presence has added a competitive edge in practice. In scrimmages, both have shown a willingness to challenge veteran teammates defensively, push the pace responsibly, and make instinctive reads. While their box score numbers remain modest, their impact in controlled environments has earned the respect of the locker room. Kerr has been careful not to overstate the case, but his praise was deliberate. The Warriors are in a phase where every possession matters, and the team cannot afford the type of high-turnover outings that have cost them close games earlier in the season. With the Western Conference standings tightening, even marginal improvements in ball security could influence playoff positioning. The upcoming stretch of games will offer a clearer picture of how Kerr plans to integrate Richard and Spencer as key contributors rather than emergency depth. If they continue to deliver low-turnover, high-discipline minutes, the coaching staff may face pressure to keep them in the rotation, even as star players return from injury. Their emergence underscores an important truth about this Warriors team. While the headlines will always gravitate toward Curry, Green, and the marquee names, success often hinges on the players whose contributions don't dominate highlight reels. In this case, Two unexpected guards have given Golden State something it desperately needed: stability. And if the team continues to thrive because of that stability, the ripple effects could shape the Warriors' rotation, strategy, and even roster decisions for the remainder of the season. Buddy Hield explains why 6 feet 2 inches Gary Payton II has become such an essential piece for the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors finally snapped their 3-game losing streak with a much-needed win over the Utah Jazz, a game where familiar leaders stepped up. Stephen Curry dropped 31 points and Jimmy Butler added 18, but the real difference came from the supporting cast. Buddy Hield and Moses Moody combined for 35 points and knocked down 7 threes, giving Golden State the offensive depth it desperately needed. But the Warriors also found stability in an unexpected place. Gary Payton II stepped into the void left by Draymond Green's absence and delivered the kind of all-around performance that often goes unnoticed on the stat sheet but completely shifts the rhythm of a game. Buddy Hield praises Gary Payton II's impact against the Jazz. Starting for the first time this season, Payton II immediately proved he belongs in that role. With Draymond sidelined due to a foot sprain, Payton II logged 20 minutes with the first unit and produced 9 points, 6 rebounds, and a career-high 8 assists, a stat line that closely resembled the connective, do-everything style Green brings to the floor. In his post-game remarks, Buddy Hield didn't hold back when praising Payton II's performance and mentality. "That's just Gary," Hield said via NBC Sports. "He always finds a way to impact winning for this team. We call him our 6'2" center. He dominates in the air, he blocks shots, he does all the little things teammates love. His entire approach is about helping us win, and you see why he already has a ring here." Hield went further, emphasizing how Payton II elevates the Warriors system. "He just connects everything. He knows where to be, he understands how to link up with Steph, and he finds open guys at an elite level. He plays his role better than almost anyone in the league." Payton II embraces Draymond Green's responsibilities. After the game, Payton II admitted that he was consciously trying to replicate aspects of Green's presence, knowing how much Golden State depends on Draymond's defensive organization and playmaking. "I was just trying to keep the energy and structure that Dre provides," Payton said. "We needed the win, so I wanted to make sure I supported the guys the way he would, moving constantly, creating openings, doing a bit of everything." The toughest assignment of the night was on the defensive end. With Green out, Payton II took on the responsibility of guarding Utah's top offensive threat, Lauri Markkanen. "We knew Markkanen was going to be the focal point of their offense," Payton said. "That's a matchup Dre would have taken right away, so I stepped into it. Be everywhere, create chaos, disrupt him, and try to get stops that can lead us into transition." The broader impact on the Warriors. Payton II's performance didn't just help secure a win, it also reinforced how critical versatile high-effort players are to Golden State's identity. With Green missing time and the team struggling with inconsistency, Payton's ability to mimic key parts of Draymond's game gave the Warriors both stability and inspiration. His showing may also influence Steve Kerr's rotation decisions moving forward, especially given how smoothly he meshed with the starters and how noticeably the team's defensive intensity improved with him on the floor. Golden State's locker room made it clear, when Gary Payton II takes on more responsibility, the entire team feels it. The Warriors' coaching staff also acknowledged the significance of Payton II's performance. According to team insiders, Steve Kerr has been searching for a reliable defensive anchor whenever Draymond Green is unavailable, and Payton's showing against Utah gave the staff renewed confidence in the team's ability to hold its structure without relying solely on its veteran core. Privately, members of the coaching staff noted that Payton's ability to communicate on defense stood out just as much as his stat line. He consistently directed teammates through screens, switched assignments without hesitation, and orchestrated the Warriors' rotations in a way that resembled Green's trademark command of the defense. Those internal evaluations could lead to a more defined and elevated role for Payton moving forward, especially in lineups that emphasize pace and pressure. The ripple effect on the Warriors' roster. Payton II's emergence also brings new clarity to some of the questions that have lingered over Golden State's rotation. Players like Jonathan Kuminga and Moody have thrived in bursts, but the team has lacked a consistent defensive presence outside of Green. Payton's ability to fill that void not only addresses an immediate need, but also reshapes the roles of other wings and guards. In the locker room, several players referenced how Payton's presence allowed them to play more freely. Curry, in particular, benefited from having an additional defender who could take on primary assignments, allowing him to conserve energy for offense. Veterans described the atmosphere as settled, noting that the team looked more composed than it had during the recent losing streak. Media and fan reactions. Outside the team, analysts were quick to highlight the broader implications. Local media praised Payton II for restoring the Warriors' defensive intensity, a component many observers believed had faded during the skid. Some analysts even suggested that Golden State might need to consider more frequent small ball lineups built around Payton's disruptive style, especially in matchups where Green is either injured or unavailable. Fans echoed those sentiments, pointing out how noticeably different the team's effort level appeared when Payton was on the court. Several commentators argued that his influence extended beyond statistics, that his instincts, timing, and aggression embodied the championship DNA the Warriors have relied on for nearly a decade. What this means for the Warriors moving forward. The win over Utah may not resolve all the questions surrounding the Warriors this season, but it offered something the team desperately needed, a blueprint. Payton II's performance demonstrated that Golden State can still lean on its defensive identity, even when one of its foundational players is absent. Looking ahead, the Warriors know that consistency will determine whether this victory becomes a turning point or just a temporary lift. Payton II's expanded role could be a crucial piece of that puzzle, especially as the schedule tightens and the team faces opponents who will test their physicality and depth. For now, his impact has reshaped the internal narrative. Instead of worrying about what they lose without Draymond Green, the Warriors have been reminded of what they gain with Gary Payton II, a relentless defender, a connector, and a player whose influence stretches well beyond his size.